So we have a dilemma, and we did a lot of praying over it. And when you go to watch this video, you're going to see something different. And the difference is I'm missing. And we have been fighting a lot of spiritual warfare with our videos. And honestly, is it any surprise? I don't think so. Yeah. And so we prayed over whether we should bring out the video without me, and we're going to. And so you're going to see the video with just Bree and our guest. And so this is what happens when the enemy fights you. And then there really wasn't anything that we could do about it except for re-record.
Yeah. Which, I don't know if you have ever done any recording or editing and stuff, like all of the planning that goes into all of this behind the scenes is kind of difficult to do. And so our guest has an amazing message, and so we hope you'll stay and listen to it. Even though you can't hear Sherry asking her questions and stuff, we did a little creative editing with it, but I think you're really going to enjoy what she has to share. And so, yeah, stick around and listen to it. And also, like, the reason that we're doing this little intro before is to just ask for help, actually, and make people aware that there is a battle going on in the spiritual realm, and the enemy of our souls does not want these testimonies of God's grace and goodness and his love and how he's showing up in the lives of his children. He doesn't want those shared because he doesn't want us having that loving connection with our Heavenly Father. And so we are asking for your help. We've run into some issues like this on the back end, recording over the internet like we do. And so this isn't the only interview that we run into issues with, unfortunately. In production, we run into issues, and recording, we run into issues. And the warfare has just been really heavy lately. And so we're really needing a prayer team and people to come beside us and support us in that specific area of just praying over this podcast on days when we're recording, on days when we're editing, on days when it goes out and we want it to reach the people it needs to reach and the hearts that it needs to encourage. And so, yeah, we're just asking for prayer support.
Yeah, I mean, it was really the last one was, we couldn't even get on to record for 15 minutes.
Yeah,
15 minutes.
We had to keep stopping and praying over our connections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that video will come out in a bit, but the
A few
last
weeks.
3 videos that we've had have had a lot of attacks on them.
Yeah.
A lot. And so we're like, we know we're doing exactly what we should be doing. We're right over the target of the messages that you need to receive.
Yeah.
And we're grateful you're here.
Yes, we're so grateful. So we're going to have some links for you guys in the show notes this week to go and sign up if you would like to help and be part of our prayer team, our prayer warriors, to get He Met Me in the Middle out and have it reach the people that it needs to reach. Yeah. And there will be some other ways of supporting this podcast too if you feel so inclined, but we would love to have your prayer support.
Thank you for hanging with us and fighting through the spiritual battles with us, honestly.
Yeah, thank you. Well, welcome back to He Met Me in the Middle. I'm Brianne Sims, RN and co-founder of Kingdom Fasting. And today we have a very fun guest with us, a good friend of mine, Mandy Gerih. Gerih, did I say that right? Gerih. Okay. Yep. Well, Mandy and I met at church, and we've done several home groups and Bible studies together and things, and she's just an amazing lady. And she has recently returned from a mission trip to Kenya. She's a physical therapist, and this is her second time going. So I thought it would be really fun to have her come on and share some of her experiences and what that was like, and just about the travel organization that she went with, the people she went with, what they were able to do there, all those things. So, yeah. So I'm just going to let Mandy fill us in on some of the details.
Yeah. So yeah, I am a PTA here in Western Nebraska. Me and my husband live out here in Western Nebraska. My daughter is a freshman in college this year in Sterling. So past couple years, I have been able to go on these mission trips. I partner with people around Midwest Nebraska who partner with a company called Lifeway Global. And Lifeway Global is an indigenous missionary agency, and they catalyze disciple-making movements. So the way that they structure their organization is very specific and strategic. So they pray about locations, people, resources, that type of stuff. They build teams. And then step 3 is kind of where we come in, and it's the compassion ministries. So they look to love their neighbors, and they go to them figuring out how can we best meet your needs? What are the challenges you face? And so then they come in and provide resources. So the ministry that I go with, there's 3 components to that. There's a medical component, an agriculture component, and a teaching component. So we get to provide medical care to these places in unreached people groups, into areas where there is not a lot of medical care. They're days away from, like a day's drive from a hospital or a clinic. So some of the only medical care they get is these free clinics, essentially. So I'll talk a little bit about how Lifeway got started, if that's okay. It was founded by a man named Dr. Ayla Tassi. He grew up Muslim, and he was in a Muslim school where they were kind of taught that don't believe anything Christians say, and Christians can't be trusted, and that kind of sort. He got sick with cerebral malaria when he was 13 years old. And he had a guest professor who was Christian visit him every day in the hospital. And when they had cerebral malaria back then, it was pretty much a death sentence. There was not a lot of health care. There was not a lot of medicine. So he was pretty much in the hospital waiting to die. And this guest professor kind of challenged him on his faith, asking him where he was going to go when he died, because in the Muslim beliefs, they believe that if your good outweighs your bad, get to go to heaven, but only Allah knows. So he had no assurance of his salvation at that time. So this guest professor wasn't necessarily trying to convert him into Christianity, but get him to believe that his sins were forgiven and that he had a savior. And so he gave his life to Christ, and Jesus healed him. And he wanted to know more about this Jesus who healed him. So he read his Bible in private. He still attended the Muslim school, and he still went to the mosque to pray because he was afraid, and he was 13. And so he kind of read his Bible in private. And then he would go to these kind of secret churches until he got discovered by somebody who knew his father. And his family had a meeting, and they all voted that he needed to leave. So he pretty much got kicked out of his community. He went to live with a pastor and his wife, who kind of fostered his growth in his faith. And one day he told God that he wanted to have an appointment with him. So he went out into the forest and met with God, and God gave him the words in Isaiah 43:18, where it said the former things have passed, and he saw cabbages growing in the desert. And he knew, and nothing grows in the desert in northern Kenya. It's pretty much rock. So he knew that these cabbages meant his people. He needed to bring the gospel in his people, and that God promised him that he would make the cabbages grow. So since then, he has many degrees in that missionary field, and he has developed this organization called Lifeway Global, and their goal is to make disciple-making movements. And so over 4 generations, so a disciple-making movement, before it to become a movement, making a disciple is 1 generation. So until it gets to the 4th generation, over 100 people have come to Christ over 4 generations in that disciple-making disciples. That then becomes a movement. So he does a lot of training. He trains leaders. He catalyzes these movements, and then they provide these strategic missions, which is what I got to be a part of. So like I said, our specific mission consisted of a medical team, an agriculture team, and a teaching team. The agriculture's, their goal there was to help train these area coordinators, people who work for Lifeway or don't necessarily work, but have made that disciple making their lifestyle. So they need a means to provide for their family. So they will teach them farming practices. Even the Muslims will come to these trainings that they hold to help them be able to grow a crop and sell and make a living for themselves. And they use the Bible in their teachings. Every day they do discovery Bible studies. Like when the agriculture team is there, they pretty much preach it from the Bible. And then the medical component, we set up a clinic. So it's a day's drive from Nairobi up to Marsabit County. And that's kind of the area that we've been in for the past couple of years. This year we went a little bit further out, but it's all in the Chalbi Desert. It's aimed to reach the unreached people groups. There's 46 unreached people groups in Kenya alone, and Lifeway Global has reached every single one of them. So unreached people group meaning less than 2% Christian. So there's, I can't even remember how many, like 720 unreached people groups in Africa, and they've reached over 100 of them. So they're in several different countries in Africa. But our focus has always been Kenya. So anyway, we go out from Marsabit County and we do a clinic 3 different days. So our stats this year was we served 566 people in 3 days. And during these clinics, so our purpose is to be the hands and feet of Jesus, to serve these people, to give them what they need. We know that only one day is not enough to fix all of their medical needs. But the real goal is to identify people of peace. So these people are people whose hearts are open to hearing about the gospel, those that are searching. Jesus talks about these people in Matthew 10, and I think it is Luke 10. And yeah, we find these people of peace, and then the local area coordinators will stay there and take them through discovery Bible studies, and then there more leaders are born. So the Lifeway understands the importance of people staying in that area. You know, their goal is not to convert to Christianity. Their goal is to disciple the gospel and to make disciples. And so they understand the importance of these people are going to trust their friends, their local, neighbors, more so than these strange Americans coming to, to try to disciple the gospel. So they have area coordinators in all of these locations. They have, these teams are established everywhere we go. So that way somebody always remains there to help them understand the gospel. And then through those discovery Bible studies, they develop more leaders and more teams to continue that movement. So that's pretty much what we get to do. And then the teaching team. This year we had a couple pastors. They have these classes essentially that help the leaders or new leaders or already leaders there better understand how to disciple the gospel and how to preach about the gospel. So they kind of take them through different steps on how to lead a church service, essentially.
I love that this mission organization partners with locals in continuing the discipleship. And so they're just bringing in resources when you guys come, and then they're continuing that discipleship in the community, which is exactly what needs to happen, because there has to be, that buy-in and that continuance in order for the gospel to grow. So I think that's amazing. That's really neat organization. I've never heard of one like that before.
Yeah, the way that they structure how they do it is meant to make it sustainable. So a lot of different organizations have come in and done things like built roads or built church buildings or things like that, but there's no sustainability because there's nobody there to continue to teach them about it.
There's no one there to continue the work. So, yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, and they do more than that as well. They bring in people who help teach people how to create business plans for entrepreneurship. They bring in food and water missions. So they really try to understand what the need is in that area and then bring that kind of resources there because they want to be able to engage these people and show them love and compassion that way.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yep. Yep. And it all is meant to represent, Jesus' incarnational ministry, or he left the glory of heaven to come serve us. And so we leave the glory of our homes and the convenience and comfort of our homes to go serve these people, to love them.
Beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. So what that looks like is we arrive in Nairobi, Kenya. Lifeway Global has a campus in Nairobi. That's where its headquarters is. And they host a lot of training camps and disciple making training camps there. So we stay there. The next day we meet the team from Kenya because there's also a medical team that comes with us. There's an agriculture team that comes with us. And then of course there's area coordinators in all the different locations. So we meet the team and we do, some Bible study. We pray, we organize all of our stuff. We bring with us a lot of like vitamins and calcium tablets and braces and eyeglasses, like readers, and sunglasses and toothbrush and toothpaste and those types of things. So we organize all of our equipment. And then the next day is a whole day's drive up to Marsabit in the Chalbi Desert. And then from there, the medical team and the teaching team this year went to Maikona, Kenya, which is about a 5-hour
Wow.
drive, 5 or 6 hour drive from Marsabit. So we went out to Maikona, and then that's where we stayed to do our clinic for 3 days. And the teaching team was also in Maikona. And then the agriculture team stayed in Marsabit. Because there's a little bit more rain in Marsabit than there is like in Maikona. It's really dry and desolate. So it's hard to establish any kind of agriculture up there. So yeah, and then we get there and we have 3 days for our clinic and we see as many people as we can a day. Like I said, we had 566 people total in 3 days and we had 8 people of peace. So it doesn't seem like a lot of people of peace. However, those 8 people will become pretty impactful in that area. So Maikona is in about 5,000 people. So it was a pretty, I say large just because to me that is large, especially the other villages that we have served were not that big at all. So it was a pretty large area and people from all over would come. If they hear that there's a free medical camp happening, they will drive a day away or walk a day away
Wow.
just to get there. There's no road, there's no paved road from Marsabit to Maikona. It's amazing that the bus driver even knew how to get there. Because
Wow.
there's no paved road. It's just kind of like, what we think about dirt roads. They're a still established road. They're not really established roads there. You just drive. So
Wow.
these people come from all over to come to these medical clinics. So yeah, and our medical team consisted of a retired physician assistant, nurses, myself, and another physical therapist assistant. There was a student who is going into the physician assistant program. She was kind of interning at Lifeway. She's there for several months, and so she was able to help us as well. And then an eye doctor and his wife. So we had eyes, physical therapy, and doctors.
Wow.
And then the Kenya team, we had a few more Kenyan doctors and a couple students, the way Kenya sets up their residency is a lot different. The government has to appoint them a residency. And so a lot of the med students are waiting to be placed.
Oh, wow.
And so they get experience by serving on these missions.
Wow.
So,
That's interesting.
yeah. And then we had some nurses that kind of ran the pharmacy as well. So, yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot of planning that goes into all of that.
So John Diba is the one who leads Lifeway Global Kenya, who's actually Dr. Isla's brother. And Lifeway does a lot of the background work for us to be able to make this happen. So they go out and, like I said, their goal is to reach all the unreached people groups. Midwest E-Free in Nebraska, our unreached people group that we focus on every year is the Gabra people. And so that is the region where most of the Gabras are. There's like the indigenous groups there. There's other people in North America and in Europe who also do these strategic missions, and they go to other places. So it's kind of Lifeway is how they organized who goes to what area. And then so everywhere like in the Shelby Desert, north of northern Kenya is where we serve. And these local area coordinators, they kind of go out and figure out where the gospel needs to be heard the most, where can we reach more unreached people groups. And so each year we try to go a little bit further out to make sure that we're getting to all of them. Because a lot of these places, there's no roads. So Lifeway Global has really paved the way to make this happen. And Kenya is kind of the birthplace of Lifeway Global. There are, say, over 20 countries in Africa that they serve. Some of them aren't named just because of persecutions, but they serve a large area. And Kenya is just kind of where our team goes every year. A lot of it is Muslims. A lot of the schools in these areas are taught by Muslims. So they're kind of taught not to believe what Christians say, because it is a lot of Muslims and Muslim taught schools. Some of them have their own tribal religions. Like Mycona, there was some Christian churches already there. And I think that's one of the reasons why we only had 8 people of peace this time, because there are already Christians in that area. The Catholics have been there for a while, but Lifeway's goal is not to convert to Christianity. It's to make believers and to make disciples. And so I think that's what a lot of these churches are missing when they have all the right intentions of, bringing Christianity to this area. But the things that work there are much different than the things that work here. So you can't just go build a road, or you can't just go build a church building. It's more about the people and the relationships.
So true. Yeah. It's about helping people build a relationship with God.
Yeah. And God will always provide. So
pretty amazing.
Yeah. And the first year, I did not really know what to expect of what I could do, because usually physical therapy is, you're being seen for 16 weeks, not just one day. And so trying to figure out how I was going to be able to do physical therapy on somebody was really challenging for me. But these people have no basic knowledge of human anatomy or personal hygiene or, just basic body mechanics. So a lot of it is education, teaching them how to carry, teaching them how to, simple body mechanics for when they're doing their work or activities or what have you. And then a lot of it is just make them feel good in the moment. Serving them with joy and love matters. So me and the other PTA that were there, we actually got adopted by Gabra moms because of how we greeted them. So when you greet them with love and joy, that's what they're looking for. That's being intentional with them, showing that you care. That's what matters most to them. So it was pretty special.
That's, I love that. So what
Yeah.
made you decide to go back a second time?
Honestly, it was just God's calling. I've always wanted to do mission trips in the past. My cousin, who's a doctor in Central City, presented me this the previous year, and that's kind of how I got into this organization. And then just when you're there, you can feel the presence of God so much more in your life because there's no distractions. There's no, you know, people aren't worried about status or money or news or any of that. There's no distractions. And so I really missed that simple life. The people of Lifeway, they just have this simple faith. They truly rely on Jesus to guide them through every decision that they make. And just to be a part of that was so rewarding.
Yeah, that you kind of dived into what my next question was going to be, because I was going to ask you how it challenged you, like spiritually, emotionally, or just, were there certain ways that you felt like God showed up for you, going so far out of your comfort zone,
Oh, for sure. I mean, God was in the details, and that's what I learned most this time around was that he really cares about the details. Like right now I'm reading through the Old Testament and the law and all these things, and I'm asking God, what is the importance of knowing every little detail? Well, and he reminds me, because I care about the details. I care about the details in your life too. And that's what he really showed me this time around was we almost missed our flight in Paris. So we flew out of Omaha to Minneapolis and then Minneapolis to Paris. Well, our plane got delayed in Minneapolis and we had to get de-iced, and that took a couple hours. And we landed after our plane was supposed to take off in Paris. And if you've ever been through the Paris airport, it is a madhouse. It's a maze. It's hard to get through security. And so it was a total God thing that we were able to even board that plane. There was, I think, over 30 people on our flight who needed to make that connecting flight. So they held the plane for us. That never happens.
Wow.
And
No, yeah.
so right there, God was there. When we were in Mycona, it was hot. It is like 105 degrees in the desert. There's no reprieve from the heat. You don't have a nice air-conditioned building. You're in a concrete compound. Inside is hotter than it is outside. There's bugs, there's mosquitoes, you're in a mosquito net. It's not comfortable at all. But God provided rain for us twice when we were up in the desert. And it never rained in Mycona. So it was just really cool to see him show up in all of those ways.
It's amazing.
Yeah. It was funny. One of the nurses, it's like a 9-hour time change difference over there. And so the first night when we were in Mycona, we were all hot and tired. And one of the nurses sent a prayer request back to her church. And she accidentally sent it urgently for cooler weather or for rain or, for reprieve from the heat. And it rained the next day. And so it was like probably 3-4 o'clock in the morning, here in America when she's sending these prayer requests. And the very next day it started raining. So it was just so cool to see.
Wow. It's amazing. God loves to answer our prayers like that and show up and show off. And it's awesome.
Yep.
What is it like for you coming back to the US after being there and doing that?
The first year coming back, it was actually really hard. I wasn't prepared to how I would feel. It's almost a little disheartening because discipling to people in America is so much harder than to disciple to people in these, areas where it's very third world and, their only hope is Jesus. Here in America, we are given so many other options. So it's almost harder to disciple people here. And you have all this, this connection and all these feelings and this specific purpose when you're there. And then when you come back to real life, you're like, okay, well,
Yeah.
what's my purpose now? And so, yeah, it's just so simple when you're there. And then when you come back here, it just seems, I probably overcomplicate it myself, but it's just so easy to overcomplicate things
I
here.
mean, I don't think you're
So
overcomplicating
it was,
it. I felt the same way coming back from Africa after missions trip too. It's just that here everyone has so much and so many options. It's just like, I already have everything I need. What do I need God for? You know,
Yep.
I guess I kind of feel like that's the mindset. And when you're there, you know, you're so far out of your comfort zone with just the culture, the way you get around, the way you live, like everything is just different. And it's that way with any country that you go to. But you really do have to rely on God literally for everything. And you're also relying on other people in that country, you know, while you're there for safety, for food, for like all the things. And so you do really have to rely on Him so much more. And it's so prayed over, it's so like planned for. And then you come back here and it's like you're not with the same group of type people who are praying over a situation, who are working in the same, you know, towards the same goal. It's that I think part of it really is what I'm getting at is the unity in the body of Christ that you see going on mission. And then you don't have that as often in the US outside of that, you know, of people being here and being so much in unity and being on mission and having the one goal and like having that, I don't know, sort of intimacy with God among believers of having a specific plan and purpose in mind for something. And so I feel like part of it, leaving that is kind of hard. I think we kind of miss it because it feels like a sort of experience of like the church in Acts, you know, when their sole mission was to travel around and just share their testimony of Jesus and disciple people. You know, sometimes they'd stay for a while, sometimes they would stay for a short amount of time, but they always leave disciples behind, like you're talking about in this organization, to continue the ministry, to continue discipling people, to continue that relationship and developing that oneness and unity with God. And so I think we miss that here in the US. I think we kind of miss the mark on that a lot of times in our churches and just everyday lives as Christians. And it's kind of sad to see that we let other things, like you were saying, distract us and sort of get in the way, really, of what our hearts desire, and that's community with God and other believers.
definitely.
And just continuing to grow that. Yeah.
Yeah. I do miss, you know, because when you're there, you're with people who have the same purpose, the same goal. You're all like-minded. And then when you come back, you may work around people who are very different or have different goals and different beliefs. And so, yeah, it's definitely a lot harder to mesh with the people you're here. But I think, you know, this is my purpose. You know, what I do for my job is not necessarily my purpose, but who I am, what kind of therapist I am, you know, how I can be an ambassador for Christ even here, and how I can display His glory even through my job here. And that is my purpose. So I've learned that this year. It was a lot easier transitioning back home this year just because I felt more prepared.
That's awesome. And beautiful. I love that because you can carry those lessons into where God has you right now in your everyday life. And I feel like we all need to, that He wants us relying on Him, you know, no matter what we're doing, and carrying His love and joy to everyone. Just like you were talking about in that clinic, and being really intentional about that. I love that.
Yeah. Even sure, it was kind of cool. One of our team members, their kids made these bracelets, these beaded bracelets that said Jesus loves on them. And the agriculture team, you know, there's a lot of Muslims who came to the agriculture teachings. And the last day of the teaching, the imam of the Muslims, so like the leader, asked one of the guys for his bracelet. So it was really cool to see. And when they take these new believers through Discovery Bible Studies, they really teach them, they start with creation because even Muslims believe in that. So they try to get on the same page with their beliefs, and they don't try to convince them, they just show them. And so they show them through the Bible who God is, what God says about man, what we're told that we're supposed to do, what obedience looks like, what faith looks like, and what Jesus commanded. And so they first start with the creation, and then they kind of slowly move up into the gospel because it's definitely more accepted moving that direction.
Sure. Starting with things that they're familiar with and moving forward from there.
And also, another thing that Lifeway does is they serve the persecuted. So they provide housing, medical care, food, water. They provide things for areas where Christians are persecuted. So they have kind of these like safe houses for people like that. They are into South Sudan a lot recently, and are pretty encouraged by the testimonies that they have heard there by these people that have been through a lot, have been persecuted by their own family, threatened by their own family, but just the joy that they have because of their beliefs in Christ. It's pretty amazing to hear. So
That is amazing. So how would someone get connected with this organization if they're interested in being part of it?
So they have a website. It's called lifewayglobal.org. You can learn. I really recommend. There's a video. There's like a 12-minute video that Dr. Isla talks about his testimony a little bit and why he started Lifeway Global. It's pretty powerful. It's on his website. You can find out who they are, what they do, who they serve, how to get involved, all of that.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Yep. And this organization, I mean, they're all like, how they get paid is donations. They truly rely that God is going to provide even that.
Awesome.
So
it's definitely a good cause to look at if you're looking for a place to make a donation.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And right now, one of their biggest needs are audio Bibles, because a lot of these areas where they're teaching the gospel is they're illiterate because they haven't been to schooling. That's why it's so important that they have people all over. There's
locals.
It's not just one big team in Nairobi. It's teams everywhere.
Yeah, local teams, which is the best thing.
Mm-hmm.
So now that you've been on 2 of these missions with this team and this organization, what kind of advice or, I don't know, just thoughts would you have for someone who's considering doing something like that?
Just do it. Pray about it, obviously. But there's so many fears, and if we allow fear to get in our way, we'll never experience the blessing that God. I mean, you think you're going to go there and bless all these people, but really you are the one leaving blessed. And it's just an experience that you just have to experience.
Yeah, I agree.
And God will provide because he cares about the details. So
he does. Yeah.
Yep.
I would agree with you so much on that statement of you're hoping to go there and make a difference in someone's life, but really they're the ones who make a huge impact on your own life and how they live and walk out the gospel. All the people that we met on our travels and stuff, just amazing, and shapes you in new ways and really gives you a different view of the world, of taking the gospel to the world and just, yeah. It's really hard to put into words. It's really difficult to put into words, honestly.
It just makes you take a step back and look at the bigger picture. We can get like tunnel vision with our lives, our routine and, all the bad stuff, the good stuff, it can just kind of overwhelm you. But when you do things like this, it really makes you take a step back and just appreciate everything.
Agreed.
What does your husband think about you going to Kenya?
Yeah, he obviously supports the cause. It's hard for him when I'm gone just because you know, he worries about all the things being in a different country where it's primary Muslim, but when people think of it being primary Muslim, it's not like they're Islamic terrorists. I mean, Kenya is a very safe place, and that's why I am appreciative to go there. All the countries surrounding Kenya, it's probably a different story, but Kenya is pretty safe to be at. And the Muslim people they're very friendly. So it's a lot of reassuring him.
I could see that.
And, being like 9-hour time difference, communication sometimes is a little hard, but we always find a few minutes every day to make that connection. So that way I can reassure him.
Good.
Yeah. I'm trying to talk him into going. So
And I
Lifeway
wondered about
Global,
that.
their longer vision is to build a clinic in Marsabit, like
Wow.
an actual hospital that they've had the process started. And so they've had architects build up and engineers, build up a plan, but they're just kind of waiting for phase 2. It's going to require the funds, the people to sustain it. It requires a lot. But when that happens, my husband's an electrician by trade, so I am trying to convince him to jump on board with helping out with the building process
That'd be so neat
once it gets.
for both of you to go together.
Yeah. And I mean, there's always jobs. People, even like with the medical clinic, people who aren't that necessarily healthcare workers have gone and done triage or, help with whatever is needed.
Yeah.
So the only requirement is that you are a believer in Jesus.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Mandy, and for sharing about your experiences and your travels and about this organization and what they're doing. It's been a really fun conversation, and I hope that people are inspired to go and live out the gospel, further in the gospel to the ends of the earth. So,
Well,
thank you.
Yes, thank you for giving me a platform to share.
Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.